Heavy rain continued to batter the country for 2 straight days, particularly in the greater capital area. Roads were closed, houses were flooded, and evacuation orders were put in place for residents in certain locations. Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power has been chosen as the preferred bidder for a major nuclear power plant construction project in the Czech Republic. We take a look at what's special about Korea's technology. Most of the protesting trainee doctors, some 10,000, are unlikely to return to their work sites as the government finalizes the number of vacancies. New recruitment is scheduled from next week for the second half of the year. It's July 18th, 6 p.m. in Seoul. This is Newscenter. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon. We start here in Seoul, where rain continues to pound the city, prompting warnings against flash floods and landslides. For more, we go straight over to our Shin Ha-young standing by at one of the bridges. Ha-young, what's the situation like over there?
Hello, Jungmin. Yes, I'm currently at the Jamsugyo Bridge, which crosses the Hangang River in central Seoul. And due to continuous rainfall, the water level has been gradually rising. And at around 2:15 p.m., vehicle access was restricted after the water level reached above 6 meters. And the vehicle control level is 6.2 meters. And also, the pedestrian access to the bridge had already been shut off at just past 7 a.m. this morning, even though the water level hadn't exceeded the 5.5-meter limit at the time. And police say preemptive measures were taken for safety reasons. And heavy rainfall has led to various closures around the city, including both directions of the Dongbu Expressway linking the city to Gyeonggi-do Province. And a heavy rain warning was in effect across Seoul until 4 p.m. A heavy rain warning is issued when rainfall is expected to exceed 90 millimeters in 3 hours or 180 millimeters in 12 hours. And at 7:30 a.m., the landslide warning level for Incheon, Seoul, Gyeonggi-do Province, and Gangwon-do provinces was alleviated to serious, the highest level. And heavy rainfall also led to flood advisories in Seoul's 10 districts. While no casualties have been officially reported, several cases of rain damage were reported across the capital. And these include fallen trees along streets, flooded homes, and traffic accidents caused by slippery roads.
Now that looks very concerning. Ha-young, what about the situation in other regions?
Well, a heavy rain warning has been issued for various parts of the northern parts of Chungcheongnam-do Province, while advisories have been issued for Daejeon and Chungcheongbuk-do Province. And a person has reportedly died in Nonsan City, Chungcheongnam-do Province due to barn collapsing, but authorities are looking into whether that was due to the actual rainfall. And as of 11 a.m. today, the Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasures Headquarters have reported more than 200 cases of house flooding nationwide. And due to the risks of landslides and flooding, more than 900 residents have been evacuated across the country. And Interim Minister Lee Sang-min ordered the mobilization of all possible personnel and resources to minimize rain damage as the ministry raised its readiness posture from caution to vigilance. And that's all I have for this hour, but I'll bring more updates in our later newscast. Back to you, Jungmin.
All right, that was our Shin Ha-young reporting live from Jamsugyo Bridge. Thank you. And as heavy rain hits the peninsula, North Korea has begun releasing water from the Hangang Dam, approximately 40 kilometers north of the DMZ. The dam is located in the upper part of the Imjingang River, which flows from north to south and joins the Hangang River downstream. The Ministry of Environment on Thursday observed signs of the water discharge through satellite imagery taken overnight. It's presumed that the amount isn't too large, but South Korea is operating an emergency response system to cover any potential risks. Meanwhile, an official at the Unification Ministry told reporters he regrets the discharge, which occurred despite the South Korean government's previous request that Pyongyang follow an agreement to notify Seoul beforehand. In other news, a consortium led by the country's nuclear power entity has been chosen as the preferred bidder for a major nuclear power plant construction project in the Czech Republic. Our presidential office correspondent Woo Soo-young has the details.
South Korea's state-run power giant has been named the preferred bidder to build at least 2 nuclear plants in the Czech Republic, marking a major feat for the country's budding export industry and President Yoon's sales diplomacy. Czech Prime Minister Petr Fiala said Wednesday that a South Korean consortium led by Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power won the hotly contested tender to build reactors at the Dukovany power plant, beating France's EDF in all criteria assessed. Fiala said 2 more reactors could be built at the Temelin plant. South Korea's presidential office expressed gratitude for Prague's decision in a briefing Wednesday evening.
This makes KHNP the preferred bidder for the construction of 2 Dukovany nuclear reactors, and if the Czech government decides to proceed with the construction of 2 Temelin reactors, KHNP will also be the preferred bidder. This comes 15 years after winning the country's bid to build the UAE's Barakah nuclear power plant in 2009, and it will be the foundation for our exports to Europe, the origin of commercial reactors.
The 2 new 1,200 megawatt units will cost about $8.6 billion each, according to the Czech government, with the final deal signed by March next year. Seoul attributed the success to the solid trust between the two sides, built over 34 years of diplomatic relations, and public-private cooperation between businesses, industry workers, government officials and citizens involved in Team Korea's bid, offering low construction costs, top safety and technological standards, to deliver completion on time within budget, as shown by the Barakah nuclear project in the United Arab Emirates. Since his inauguration in 2022, President Yoon has actively promoted South Korea's nuclear power exports, holding more than 150 summits with 100 leaders of government. His office noted that he'd met the Czech Prime Minister on 3 occasions, including in Washington, D.C. last week, and even sent a letter presenting a vision for bilateral cooperation in nuclear energy. The Czech Republic aims to phase out coal by 2033 and increase its energy security by expanding nuclear power production. KHNP's APR 1000 reactor can produce around 1.2 times the annual power consumption in Prague, according to Seoul's Trade Ministry. A presidential official said Seoul hopes that securing its bid to work on the Czech Republic's plants will lead to more opportunities in the European market, boosting investment and employment in South Korea's nuclear power ecosystem. Usyang, Arirang News.
In light of this news, our trade correspondent Lee Soo-jin takes a closer look at what's special about South Korea's nuclear power reactors and what potential challenges lie ahead.
The selection of the country's Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power as a preferred bidder to build at least 2 nuclear reactors for the Czech Republic will likely mark the beginning of further advancements into global markets. In a briefing held on Thursday, Trade Minister An Deok-keun said the achievement, which comes 15 years after the nation won the bid to build the Barakah nuclear power plant in the UAE, will open the door for further exports to Europe.
This project involves the construction of up to 4 large-scale nuclear reactors set to be the Czech Republic's biggest ever investment project. It establishes a foothold for exporting nuclear power plants to Europe, the birthplace of the first commercial nuclear reactors.
The 2 nuclear power units to be built in the Dukovany region are APR 1000 reactors, the smaller version of the APR 1400 reactors previously built in the UAE's Barakah nuclear power plant. The APR 1000 will produce around 1,000 megawatts of electricity, less than the APR 1400, but more suitable for the Czech Republic, which has a smaller electricity demand.
APR 1000 is a sister plant of APR 1400, which is a third generation nuclear reactor. It has a much higher safety capability and lots of provisions in case of something happened in the nuclear power plant.
And compared to France's EPR 1200, the APR 1000 is more affordable, as it costs almost half of the around $11 billion it cost to build the EPR 1200. And it was also certified by the European Utility Requirements Association last year, meaning that it has met more than 5,000 requirements, something France's EPR 1200 has yet to obtain. But there are still challenges ahead, namely with the ongoing legal dispute with U.S. nuclear power company Westinghouse, which filed a lawsuit against KHNP in 2022, claiming that the APR 1400 uses its intellectual property. The expert, however, is rather optimistic.
But I think that KHNP is somewhat, better positioned than before. They are trying to solve it, through the discussions and conversations rather than the solving in the courtyard.
Currently, the finalized contract is to be signed by March next year, with construction to start in 2029 and operation to begin in 2036. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
Most of the roughly 13,000 trainee doctors have not expressed a clear intention as to whether they will return to their posts or not. It's expected that around 10,000 will have officially left their positions once all the resignations are processed. The government is soon to announce a finalized list of trainee doctor vacancies at over 200 trainee hospitals nationwide. Despite the unresolved medical dispute that's rumbled on for 5 months now, training hospitals met the government's deadline by submitting their recruitment plans for the second half of the year on Wednesday. The Health Ministry is committed to starting the recruitment of trainee doctors from the 22nd of this month as planned. President Yoon has pledged to transform the southern province of Jeollabuk-do into a West Coast economic outpost, specializing in the high-tech, bio, and cultural industries. This came as the South Korean leader held his 27th public policy dialogue with local citizens, outlining his vision for the regional economy to boost people's livelihoods. He said the region will host a hydrogen complex in Wonju-gun County, as well as new infrastructure to support commercial hydrogen-based vehicles. Yoon also said the government will back the local smart farming industry through youth entrepreneurship and private investment. To enhance cultural tourism, a K-Cultural Content Support Center will also be established in Jeollabuk-do. He plans to designate Jeonju, Gunsan, and Namwon as cultural industry promotion zones by next year to nurture local cultural content. The president's office says it'll consider launching a probe and taking disciplinary measures regarding the exposure of a South Korean intelligence officer who allegedly recruited a Korean-American researcher, Sumi Terry, as an agent. A senior Yoon official told reporters Thursday that the photos and related incidents involving the National Intelligence Service officer all occurred during the former Moon Jae-in administration, adding it had purged capable agents and replaced them with amateurs, which likely led to the current situation. Terry's indictment released by the U.S. Attorney's Office in New York on Tuesday accuses the eminent foreign policy expert of breaching the Foreign Agents Registration Act by acting as an agent for the South Korean government since 2013 in return for high-end fashion goods and research funding. The heads of South Korea, the U.S. and Japan's Joint Chiefs of Staff have stressed the importance of trilateral cooperation amid escalating North Korean threats. The three countries held a trilateral chief of defense meeting in Tokyo on Thursday, attended by Seoul's Kim Myung-soo, Washington's Charles Q. Brown, and Tokyo's Yoshihide Yoshida. The chiefs condemned North Korea's illegal nuclear and missile programs, as well as deepening military cooperation with Russia. They also agreed to expand the trilateral multi-domain freedom exercise that first kicked off last month. Also discussed were the importance of maintaining peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait. The next meeting will be held next year in South Korea. Members of Korea's archery team departed for the Paris Olympics earlier this week with pledges to do their best amid warm wishes from the public. Yoon files this report.
At the heart of Paris lies the sprawling green lawns of Esplanade des Invalides. This is where South Korean archers will be aiming for gold at this year's Paris Olympics. Kim Woo-jin, Kim Jae-deok, and Lee Woo-seok in the men's recurve. and Im Si-hyun, Chun Hoon-young, and Nam Soo-hyun in the women's recurve who will be making their Olympic debuts.
For us, this is our first Olympics, and we've put in extra effort to get good results. We've worked diligently, hoping that our efforts can lead to a successful outcome.
The South Korean archery team has created an unparalleled legacy by clinching at least one gold at every Summer Olympics since 1984. After winning 4 gold medals at the Tokyo Olympics out of the 5 events, Team Korea's goal this time is to secure at least 3. The spotlight is on the women's team competition, striving for their 10th consecutive gold medal. One thing that makes South Korean archery so strong is known to be their thorough training regimes, which incorporate advanced techniques and training with robots. Competing against these emotionally neutral robots is to strengthen the athlete's psychological resilience. The archers also trained in simulated settings, such as football stadiums with large crowds and under different weather conditions. Now it's almost time for their hard work to pay off, and they'll have the backing of their nation.
To our athletes, instead of dwelling too much on the medals, I believe valuing the process and hard work is more important. I hope you give your all and enjoy the journey. Go Team South Korea!
I hope all the athletes' hard work pays off. Good luck.
With their exceptional skill and unwavering support from their fellow citizens, archers for Team Korea are poised to write yet another chapter in Olympic history.
I hope this Olympics becomes a venue where people worldwide can connect and share moments of joy and sorrow together.
대한민국 화이팅!
이은희, Arirang News.
As summer vacation season is underway, Gangwon-do Province is one of the most popular places for people in the country to enjoy their summer breaks. Our business correspondent Park Gon-woo is here in the studio to tell us why. Hi, Gon-woo.
Evening, Jungmin.
Tell us about the Gangwon-do Province and why do you say it's popular?
First of all, Gangwon-do Province consists of 18 cities and counties with plenty of natural landscapes, including beautiful mountains, valleys, and coastlines, making it a popular place for summer vacations. People especially enjoy fun leisure activities like surfing and swimming during summer. Among the many regions within the province, I made a visit to Yangyang, one of the most popular tourist places these days. So let's take a closer look before I tell you more about Gangwon-do tourism. Gangwon-do Province in eastern South Korea is one of the country's most popular summer vacation spots, particularly due to its beautiful beaches. According to a survey by data research firm PMI in June, over 70% of Korean respondents planning summer vacations decided on domestic trips, what people call staycations, instead of going overseas due to high costs. The survey also showed that Gangwon-do was the most popular summer vacation destination in South Korea, out of all other domestic travel options.
Gangwon-do is a great place to come as it is really close to Seoul and the transportation is convenient.
I chose Gangwon-do instead of places like Jeju Island because of high costs, and I wanted to enjoy the clean ocean here instead of water parks since I already used those a lot.
All 86 beaches in Gangwon-do are now open for the summer. And by open, this means there will be lifeguards on duty as thousands of people will gather to enjoy themselves by doing fun activities such as surfing and playing in the sea. As of last Sunday, over 420,000 people had visited Gangwon-do beaches this summer, up 44% on year. Starting last Friday, all beaches in Gangwon-do Province are now open, bringing in many tourists. But some point out the need for Gangwon-do to also attract tourists during other seasons, as much as they do during the summer. That comes after mobile communications data from between September 2022 and 2023, analyzed by KBS, showed that around 65% more people traveled to Gangwon-do beaches during the peak season than in the off-season. That's compared to an average difference in beachgoers of 22.5% nationwide and 3.6% on Jeju Island.
Most tourism spending in Gangwon-do is usually made during the summer, so Gangwon-do needs to come up with diversified tourism programs and policies that reflect tourist trends, such as marine healing tourism, marine culture and festival tourism, and ecotourism to attract tourists during all 4 seasons.
Gangwon Tourism Organization said they will continue to work on coming up with ways to bring in more tourists during other seasons as well.
Then what efforts are being made in particular to promote tourism in other seasons?
Yes, so the representative of Gangwon Tourism Organization spoke about many ways that they're trying to come up with in order to bring in many tourists during all seasons, regardless of age. So first, take a listen to what he had to say.
By utilizing the natural resources and landscapes throughout the year, we're putting a lot of effort into coming up with ways to make ecological tourism programs like doing yoga or walking barefoot near the ocean and workations for all generations to enjoy.
He added that Gangwon-do is also trying to make seasonal festivals like Hwacheon's Ice Fishing Festival or Taebaeksan Mountain Snow Festival intriguing with more exciting activities to promote their tourism.
What's your recommendation for those who wish to visit Gangwon-do this summer?
Well, as there are so many places to visit, it's really hard to try to pick only a few. But as you saw in my report, going to surfing beaches to enjoy leisure activities will be worth a visit. You can even enjoy surfing while it's raining unless there's an adverse weather alert. So there's no need to worry even if you're planning to visit there during rainy season. Also, as 1 out of 3 people in Korea have pets, I recommend enjoying your vacations at dog-friendly beaches with your dogs if you're a pet owner. And last but not least, for those who want a relaxing experience, staying in villages in rural areas and experiencing the quiet vibe there can also be an option.
What a recommendation. All right, thanks for the report, Kanu.
My pleasure.
Heavy rain continues in Seoul. There are puddles everywhere due to the pouring rain, and umbrellas and raincoats are not enough. Attention will continue to be paid to extreme rainfall of up to 70 millimeters per hour in the center parts of the country until the end of work today. Until tonight, there will be a lot of heavy rain across the country, especially in the southern part. You should be careful of heavy rain of 20 to 30 millimeters per hour until dawn. By tomorrow, up to 150 millimeters of rain is expected in the Seoul metropolitan area and Jeollabuk-do Province, and up to 120 is expected in Gangwon-do Province, the Chungcheong-do Provinces, and Gyeongsang-buk-do Province. Temperature-wise, most areas will start off in the mid-20s tomorrow. Highs will move up to 31 in Seoul, Chuncheon, Daegu, and Gyeongju, 32 degrees. Up to 70 to 80 millimeters of rain are expected throughout the country this coming weekend. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is Newscenter for tonight. Thanks for watching. A panel session up next.
Welcome. 엄청난 에너지를 춤으로 뿜어내는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
하나, 둘, 셋.
Hey, Mr. Cupid, look my way. Make sure you listen to what I say. I may be stupid or quite naive.
끝없이 쏟아지는 포토스팟. 휴대폰 한 대로 감당할 수 있겠니?
Arrow straight through my heart.
웰컴. (24시간) 불이 꺼지지 않는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
정말 이상하게 안중근 선생님의 어떤 그 숭고한 정신이 저에게 살짝 스며드는 것 같은 그런 기분이 들어요.
웰컴. (24시간) 불이 꺼지지 않는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
한국에 오면 먹어야죠.
먹어도 끝이 없는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니? 웰컴. 엄청난 에너지를 춤으로 뿜어내는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
Good of you to join us. Welcome to Within the Frame. I'm Handan in Seoul. South Korea boasts the world's third largest virtual asset trading volume, trailing only the United States and Japan. But compared to the massive market size, regulations have lagged, leaving gaps in monitoring illegal activities and safeguarding users. To establish a secure framework in the rapidly expanding virtual asset markets, the Virtual Asset User Protection Law, Korea's first specialized cryptocurrency legislation, will take effect starting tomorrow. Meanwhile, controversies surrounding next year's minimum wage and wage-setting procedures continue, frustrating both businesses and workers alike. For an in-depth analysis of the new cryptocurrency law and the lingering debates over the legal base wage, Yang Jun-seok, economics professor at the Catholic University of Korea, joins me in the studio. Thank you for coming in today.
Happy to be here.
And also with us tonight is Hong Soo-young, professor at Chungang University's College of Business and Economics. It's great to have you back.
Thank you, and glad to join you.
All right, Professor Hong, let's start with you. So from tomorrow, the Virtual Asset User Protection Law will come into effect. Let's first talk about what exactly the new law is.
Actually, this is about the protection for the users, particularly make an investment and make use of some digital tokens or some the digitalized assets. However, the problem is digital assets could have some diverse features that are mixed up and then laid in the asset. Even though we call it asset, actually it is but just only exists in virtual form, so we cannot touch it. But however, it could be used as some kind of commodity, and it works as a commodity, such as like some good to be used for some other purpose, and also it could be used as a security. Therefore, because of that, many of the countries around the world, including U.S., has some difficulties to how to differentiate those two aspects and who is responsible for the regulation and the supervising over the assets. Right now in Korea, we have just under the name of the virtual assets, and the currently FSC tried to handle these issues in some under circumspect, and then to help the users to have some very safe and some innovating trading in the virtual assets.
The key provisions of the new law, so they specify how the virtual asset market will be supervised and illegal activities will be investigated to ensure greater protection for users. Professor Yang, the next big question then is what constitutes virtual assets, the scope of virtual assets that will be regulated under the new law. The financial authorities, they announced a set of guidelines last month, but there still seems to be a bit of confusion.
Well, that's because partially the field is rapidly changing, and there's continually new types of assets being introduced. So the U.S. Federal Reserve or European Union has made a definition, but it's not very helpful. The definition is an electronic representation of value, whatever that means. The Financial Action Task Force, or FATF, which is an intergovernmental group which sets international standards to prevent money laundering and terrorist activities. They define virtual asset as any digital representation of value that can be digitally traded, transferred, or used for payment, which is slightly better, but again, we don't know exactly what they mean. The Korea Financial Services Commission, their definition is virtual asset is an electronic token asset which is issued in large volume and can be directly or indirectly used as payment for specific services. But because all these definitions are so broad or non-specific, they've asked the Korean fintech
industry association to give examples, and they're going to use the examples to sort of show what the guideline means in this case. So the industry association is gathering various different types of assets and presenting it to the FSC. They're determining whether this constitutes a virtual asset or not. But what I am worried about, though, is that Korean law tends to be literal. So if the guideline includes these assets, they will be counted as virtual asset. But if new kind of virtual assets come along, and if FSC does not continually update the type of goods that are considered as virtual asset, then it might fall behind the times because that's how Korean law and regulation works. It's very literal.
So it looks like we still need a clear criteria of needed to determine whether certain assets, especially the confusing ones like the NFT, the non-fungible tokens, they fall under the category of virtual assets or not. And I think you highlighted a really important point that the FSS, they need to keep upgrading the incoming new coins and the new types of virtual assets as well. It sounds like a daunting task. Now, Professor Song, with the introduction of the User Protection Act, crypto exchanges will be required to set up their own monitoring bodies and review the legitimacy of their coins on a quarterly basis. They'll be assessed on standards such as the credibility of coin issuer and user protection measures. Tell us more about this. And does this imply that certain coins might face delisting?
Yeah. As you mentioned, this is very important because in South Korea, the reason why the FSC directly supervise these virtual assets, and Professor Yang mentioned that they lack the flexibility for their upcoming or newly invented virtual assets. However, what is important right now is, for example, the virtual assets, the participants who would like to use of these digital virtual assets, then they have to invest their money. Those money should be protected because that is stored in the bank, commercial bank. That's why these FSC needs to play a role. But in other countries, such as the U.S. and in Europe, has a little bit different approach, because in the U.S., the so-called Financial Innovation and Technology 21st Century, which is abbreviated as FIT21, it has mentioned that the criteria whether these virtual or digital assets should be treated as a security or commodity. As long as it turns out to be a commodity, that should be supervised under the regulation of CFTC. And then, on the other hand, if it is securities, and then if it is identified as securities, those should be controlled and regulated under the name of the SEC. That is a very clear distinction. Therefore, that is kind of some benchmark guideline for our South Korean FSC could adopt to determine what kind of the virtual assets should be treated. But however, the FSC could deal with these issues simultaneously. Therefore, I don't think even though it sounds like it lacks flexibility, but still the FSC could deal with these issues. On the other hand, in the MiCA, which is markets in the crypto assets in the European Union, is because European unions are consisted with so many different countries. Therefore, this could be they need some agreement and consensus among the member countries to determine how to regulate effectively. Even though they start very early in the June 2023, they could make some progress. But whereas in the U.S., they are stalled, even though they passed the House bipartisan agreement. But the problem is still they need to address the issues how to collaborate or coordinate between those two supervising or regulatory agencies. So that's why the Biden administration and their cabinet right now is a little bit object the act of FIT 21 to be enforced just right away. They need to wait for the Senate to agree with that. And then what is but important is the non-fungible token. For example, it is a non-fungible token could be counted as some kind of securities, whereas non-fungible token should be regarded as a kind of commodity. So that is one example of distinction between those two parts. So that could be easily used in this for South Korea FSC.
And going back to the self-monitoring by cryptocurrency exchanges that'll be implemented in line with the new law, boosting monitoring on unfair practices, unfair tradings like price manipulation, of course, will help protect users. But there are also investor concerns about a massive delisting of the so-called kimchi coins, those listed only on domestic exchanges. So we'll soon find out what will happen. Professor Young, Korea's first implementation of the cryptocurrency law is also shedding light on how other advanced economies are protecting their virtual asset users. Now, Professor Song briefly touched upon this, but could you give us some representative examples we should take note of?
Well, as Professor Song mentioned, the leading regulation in this area was passed by EU, and it's the MiCA, Markets and Crypto Assets Regulations. It went into effect in May, and according to EU, the goal of the MiCA framework is to inform prospective customers and holders of crypto assets about the characteristics, functions, and risks of crypto assets that they intend to purchase. It includes measures to guarantee market integrity, reduce risks of fraud, reduce market manipulation, and it does that by differentiating asset reference tokens, electronic money tokens, and other tokens. We mentioned the NFT, non-fungible tokens, a bit before. Interesting thing about MiCA is that it excludes most NFTs because they represent something that is supposedly unique rather than something that is used like currency, a whole bunch of, say, money bills going around or equivalent to money bills. NFTs are, say, artwork, so that those are something that's unique, so that is not counted as a virtual asset, at least not virtual monetary asset. Now, United States, as Professor Song mentioned, has the Financial Innovation and Technology for the 21st Century, or FIT bill, and FIT bill includes conditions to distinguish whether a virtual asset will be considered a security or a commodity, and the virtual asset community was very happy that at least some of the virtual assets, ones that are classified as commodities, would be regulated by the not by the Securities and Exchange Commission, but a Commodity Future Trading Commission, because they tend to be looser than the SEC. So the virtual asset community was saying that in order to guarantee more innovation, you need looser regulation, and they got that with the Commodity Future Trading Commission. United Kingdom and Singapore also have initiatives concerning trading in virtual assets. But some countries like Switzerland, they're not putting in any regulations at all. They're just saying that just let it go, see what it develops.
That's interesting. Now, shifting gears to next year's minimum wage, Professor Song, after months of intense tug of war, next year's hourly wage has been set at 10,031, surpassing the 10,000 threshold for the first time. And this will raise various welfare subsidies, such as unemployment and maternity benefits as well. Help us get a clear grasp of expected changes in subsidies linked to the minimum wage.
Diane, I'm sorry, I would like to add up a little bit about some previous issues. particularly for example, the initial coin offering occurs. Initial coin offering itself could be treated as a security. And then the coin or some kind of token which was issued, that was just treated as a commodity. That is a clear distinction which the U.S. government would like to try to address and how to regulate effectively for their commodities. And Professor Yang has mentioned a little bit, but I would like to add more. And let me turn to some minimum wage issues. Then, currently, recently, we have just observed that from the 10,000 Korean won to 10,171, just only 1.7% increase. Considering the inflation that has prevailed for the past 2 or 3 years, this is actually the reduction of a real income. So I look into the real minimum wage in terms of purchase power parity, not just the exchange rate, because different country has a different inflation level and also different consumption expenditure. That should be taken into account the effect of minimum wage. Considering that South Korea has remained relatively stable and a little bit reduction in real income, real minimum wage level. For the other countries, even though nominal minimum wage level has been increased a lot but however, they have suffered so much from the high level of inflation. To that regard, because our economy has suffered from some decreasing GDP growth rate, actually, which was in last year we were just lower than our GDP growth rate was lower than even Japan. As a result, that caused our real minimum wage looks very stable or a slight reduction. But the other countries, in order to promote the economic growth, GDP growth rate, they would like to increase the minimum wage nominally, but real wage has been decreased a little bit. And for Japan has a very different perspective because the Japanese government would like to incur the inflation rate because they don't have to worry about inflation rate because inflation was too low for the past 20 years. That's why the Abenomics has worked quite well in light of the recovery of the Japanese economies. Therefore, I would like to suggest that the government should think of, and the employers and some manufacturing firms and all other firms should think of minimum wage is not just expenditure. That is a way to promote some consumption power to help the economy to grow. So to that regard, the minimum wage is the minimum level to support the consumers' purchasing power. That is clearly beneficial to the industry and the manufacturing firms and the economy. Therefore, some people, even though they complain of the increment of a minimum wage, but minimum wage is really, as long as minimum wage is increased, it is much better for the economy, particularly in this kind of our size of economy and our territory is relatively very concentrated. In this economy, we need that. Do not compare the South Korean economy with China or United States because they have a far different landscape and economic picture in hand. Therefore, we should say that the minimum wage is a very necessary minimum level to promote the economic growth.
A very strong assertion there from our Professor Song that raising minimum wage is helpful to boosting domestic economy. Now, Professor Yang, applying different base wages by industries has also long been a point of contention, but no agreement was made on that. Right. Now, some economists argue that it's about time for South Korea to introduce industry-specific wage system to offer greater flexibility. What's your take?
Okay, the reason for that, and and I'm going to disagree with Professor Song a little bit, is that Korea, if you look at Korean minimum wage in the long run, it has risen very quickly. From 2013 to 2023, it rose by 110%, while the regular wages only rose by about 40%. And compared not to China or China, but to other OECD countries, last year Korea was if you earned minimum wage as a full-time job, then you earned about 63% of per capita GDP, which was the second highest in the OECD. This year, we're about 6. Some Eastern European countries have raised their minimum wage, but I think in those countries, it is very hard to get a full-time job at a minimum wage, unlike Korea, which does. So I think unlike Professor Song, maybe I think Korean minimum wage may be set a bit too high so far. But having said that, some of the countries which we admire, like Sweden do not have a nationally set minimum wage. They have a minimum wage set by industry negotiation between labor and the union. So they naturally come up with different minimum wage for different industries. But Korea does not work that way. I think one of the problems is that the Korea representatives who decide the minimum wage represent not only the minimum wage workers and businesses which pay minimum wage, but the national unions and national business groups. And the minimum wage negotiations tend to be the first step in national wage negotiations, and that, I think, puts the minimum wage workers and unemployed at a disadvantage. So I think that is one of the problems that we have with the minimum wage system. But I think perhaps the industry-specific minimum wage may not work because, well, workers will naturally gravitate toward higher-paying industries. So lower-paying industries you may not be able to find workers who are willing to work at a lower minimum wage. But I think, like some areas of the United States, area-specific minimum wage may make sense. If you're living in an area which has very high cost of living, like Seoul, you may need higher minimum wage. But if you're living on a countryside where the cost of living is not so much, then lower minimum wage may promote more job creation.
It sounds like some advanced countries, they offer greater flexibility in the rate-setting procedures, so we can perhaps learn from that. But right now, at least for the time being, industry-specific wage system would not work well for Korea, is what you're saying. And we'll have to conclude our discussion there due to time restraint. Thank you so much, as always, Professor Yang, for joining us.
Thank you.
And many thanks to you as well, Professor Song, for sharing your insights.
Oh, I'm sorry I couldn't make some argument against Professor Yang's
perhaps next time. We'll invite you very soon.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of this show. Thank you for watching, and be sure to tune in same time tomorrow to join our conversation. Goodbye for now.
Welcome. 엄청난 에너지를 춤으로 뿜어내는 나라.